his fate. "Normans!" That one word was enough to send the bishop and his attendants scurrying away to find their hidden mounts. In the belfry, the sentinel watched the approach of the horsemen, mailed knights bearing lances from which fluttered the red and black colours of their leader, Rainulf Drengo, the man who had broken the heart of the deceased. Once the Duke's son-in-law and his military support, Rainulf had married his late daughter, gaining as her dowry the valuable lordship of Aversa. Upon her death, and purely out of naked greed, he had transferred his allegiance from Salerno to Capua, and it was a measure of how powerful this Norman mercenary had become in Campania that one such act of treachery had been enough to alter completely the balance of forces in the region. "Now we'll see who truly believes in an afterlife," said young Guimar, his eyes fixed on the departing archbishop. That cleric was not alone. The elderly abbot, too, saw good reason to absent himself, and so did some of his monks. Yet there were others whose belief in Christ, or their love of their late brother, was proof against fear, and one monk stepped forward to finish the liturgy as the body was lowered, while others stood by to slide the covering stone over the grave which had been dug, as a mark of respect, before the altar of the church. That flat block of marble, already with the name and titles of the deceased carved upon it, was pushed into place as the banging commenced on the church door, the hilt, no doubt, of a Norman sword. The dead man's son, as chief mourner, pressed into the hands of one monk a contribution to the funds of the establishment, a small purse of gold, for he was no longer wealthy. None of what their father had once owned, land, castles, coffers full of coins from the dues of the trading port, jewels and family heirlooms, would come to him. They were now the property of the wolf. "Let them enter," Guimar said. "Your safety, my lord, and that of your sister." "Do they make war on children?" "The Normans, my lord, make war as they please." "Yet they are Christians. I cannot believe they would despoil the sanctity of the church." The look on the face of the monk was one of doubt. In his cloistered life he had never met one of these devils from the far north, now banging furiously on the great double doors, but what he had heard left him in no doubt that they were as bloody and profane as the Saracens who had, many times, defiled this very building. Guimar indicated with a nod that the monk should proceed. Then he took station behind the grave of his father, Berengara holding his hand. "Do not worry, sister. If Prince Pandolf had wanted us dead, we would have been in the grave before our father." Looking at her with a forced, confident smile, hoping he had the right of it, he took in the pale, long face, the dark almond eyes in flawless skin, and a figure, though yet to be fully formed, which promised much. She was said to be a beauty, and for that she might have more to fear from these barbarian Normans than she did from her bloodline. They came in with arrogant purpose, half a dozen big men in hauberks and conical helmets, while outside, through the now open doors, Guimar could see a whole troop of mounted support, couched lances proud. The leader of the band, taller than Guimar, had his sword unsheathed, a heavy weapon that the more willowy youngster thought he himself might struggle to wield. His boots, studded with metal, sent up sparks from the flagstones as he approached. Guimar knew this man just by his build and his walk. He had been at one time captain of the men who served closely his father, his personal guards, always present at his side. There was little to see of the face, no hope of reading the expression, though below the nose guard and the eyes at either side, the lips were turned down in disapproval. He marched up to the opposite side of the gravestone and looked down, then used the tip of his weapon to trace the Latin inscription on the tomb. The snort he emitted had in it a fair measure of derision. "He was too soft, this man." "He was too good, Osmond," replied Guimar, "too trusting. He did not know that loyalty was, in you people, only the higher price any prince was prepared to pay."
"Did your father not once pay Rainulf to turn against Pandolf?"
"He did, but he did not just pay him in money. He believed that he had formed a bond of family, only to see that crumble when my sister died. How does your treacherous lord